Okay, so today we have got a great connection between the book of Isaiah and the Gospel of Mark. And that connection is the necessity of opposition. So in a way, the theme for today is related to that phrase you know so well: if something is worth doing, it's worth doing well. I'm sure you've heard that before. To really get into what these books are talking about, we just need to change that phrase a little bit. The phrase instead now is, if something is worth doing, it's worth suffering for. Do you think that's true? That if something is worth doing, it's worth at least some degree of pain? On the whole, I would say yeah, that's true. For instance, driving a car is worth the gas money and the insurance premiums. I mean, think back. Do you remember what it was like to own a car when you were a teenager? Some weeks it felt like half of your take-home pay went into the gas tank or to the mechanic. That is fiscal suffering. But it's worth the privilege of having a car and all the freedoms that come along with that. You artists among us today, I know that you literally suffer for the sake of your art. Your sweat and your tears go right into your work. Musicians will work their fingers to the bone rehearsing, or practice until their voices are raw. And what they do is they drink hot and cold at the same time, so ice water and tea. That's how you keep your voice going after practicing a whole lot. Yes, I know that trick. Athletes run the risk of very serious injury for the sake of their discipline. Police officers and firefighters put their lives on the line for the sake of their work. And let's not forget that parenting involves a certain amount of suffering. My mom made me promise to include that in the homily today. I'm sure it's in respect to my brother and my sister. Maybe me too. I don't know. But that's what I'm talking about. If something is worth doing, it's probably worth at least some degree of suffering. And that is what Isaiah was talking about today. He said, I have not turned back. I have not rebelled. My face was not shielded from buffets and spitting. Because if God was Isaiah's ally, what could prove him wrong? Righteousness and justice belonged to Isaiah and his message, and that made it worth whatever suffering was coming his way. And mind you, he was not happy about the suffering coming his way. Of course he didn't want people spitting on him. Who would want that? But he understood that that was a part of the nature of the beast. And he understood that in the end it would somehow be worth it. And notice, somehow worth it is not the same thing as getting a reward in the end. Isaiah did not know what the future held. Not exactly. He simply had faith that good works lead to good things. Whether those good things benefit himself, his loved ones, or the world at large. And he was okay with leaving the details of that in God's hands. A powerful message for us all. The gospel today piggybacks off of that. Jesus was trying to get his disciples to understand that the Son of Man must suffer greatly and be killed before rising again. And Peter, as usual, misses the point. Peter basically says, Jesus, you are so totally awesome. You are so great. There is no need for you to suffer greatly because you are all-powerful, and us disciples, we got your back. And Jesus just rolls his eyes and says, Peter, you are flat wrong. Quit being so stubborn and listen to me. Jesus was pretty much reliving this little bit from Isaiah. Jesus, like Isaiah, certainly did not want to suffer. Remember his prayer in the garden before the crucifixion? "O Lord, if it is your will, take this cup from me." But Jesus knew that that suffering was a part of the process. It could not and would not be taken away. In fact, so unmovable was that suffering to be, his disciples had to share in it. They had to take up their cross and follow him in order to remain his disciples. And taking up a cross and following Christ, that's where we enter into the story. Now, in my experience, the most common reason someone gets angry at God is because of suffering, somehow. So, sickness, betrayal, unemployment, jail time, addiction, heartbreak, all these things God will get the blame for before long. And yes, I do that from time to time. It's back to what I was saying, that necessity of opposition, that suffering that we never seem to fully escape from in life. We take that to God. And here is the odd thing. This is the thing that's going to turn your world upside down if you think about it long enough. It would seem, in this gospel story and other parts of the Bible as well, that even God got mad at God from time to time. Maybe mad isn't the right word. It would seem from this gospel story and other parts of the Bible that from time to time, even God got exhausted with God. Jesus looked ahead and he saw that horrible treatment he was sure to receive in Jerusalem. That opposition to his ministry must have been exhausting. And he was filled with fear and trepidation, and he brought it to prayer to God the Father. And that prayer of Jesus Christ, that prayer of the Son of God himself, did not take away that suffering. Eventually, all of us are going to find ourselves on our knees, praying to God for release from whatever is spiritually ailing us that day. And when that day comes, assuming it's not today, when that day comes, I have no idea what will result from that prayer. But whatever happens or fails to happen, please try to remember that even Christ himself was in that very same place, that desperate prayer for release from suffering. And that you need not suffer alone, because we share in the divinity of Christ, who, for better or worse, humbled himself to share in our humanity. Even our fear, even our suffering.